Hey guys, welcome back to the Aquarium Library with Andrew. Today we're going to be showing you guys the Greater Cincinnati Aquarium Society swap meet that they had this past weekend. I think in total, when I was talking with one of the event organizers afterwards, there was close to 300 people that came through this amazing swap meet. I'm so glad they were able to put it on. It was a great event. It got some really cool fish, and so you can see the line going down there, and the line originally was snaking out through this hallway here, out these doors here. So it was a really big event. Really happy to get out there and support the local clubs around us and just get to see everything. And then finally, you can see here to the right, sort of how far out where those people are walking. That's how far the line originally was. And with that, let's see what the Cichlid Swap, Aquarium Swap has to offer. And when I mean Cichlid Swap, I really do mean a Cichlid Swap / like Aquarium Swap. Most of the bags here and most of the tables here were pertaining to cichlids in some way, shape, or form. There are people that came from Pittsburgh, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky to sell fish and plants, but the majority of these were actually different types of African cichlids from varying lakes, be it from Lake Tanganyika, Lake Malawi, Lake Victoria, the West African cichlids, just a lot of cichlids in general. There were a couple other booths that were freshwater shrimp or plants or things of that nature, but a lot of these here that you're seeing are all African cichlids here. The next table here was a guppy table with some live plant cultures, some food cultures and whatnot. When I'm talking with them, they said that they had brought an entire table full of guppies, and by the time that we had gotten in there, 20 minutes after the start of it, they only had 4 bags of guppies left. So you can really see that the people here really were liking the guppies. I wish I would have been able to be a part of this swap meet so that I had the opportunity to sell some of my Celestial Prodanios and some of my own shrimp and things of that nature, because I think they would have done really well here. As I was saying, there's a lot of people here. Not all of them are necessarily going to be into cichlids, and this table here, which is the second table here, is just a testimony to the amount of people that wanted to buy other things besides African cichlids. The table after them was a bunch of freshwater shrimp, some plants, some other cultures of things, and they also, by the time that we had gotten there, had already sold a lot of stuff. A lot of their guppies that they had already been sold. A lot of their shrimp that they had already been sold. So it was really cool to see a bunch of different varieties. Had a lot of green shrimp, and my friend here is looking at some guppies in the bag. He ended up actually getting a couple of green shrimp from them, from green jade shrimp, that is. So it would have been a really good day to have been a seller of anything that wasn't African cichlids at this particular swap meet, because things were just moving really quickly from these guys' stands, whereas the other vendors that had African cichlids, yeah, they were selling some, but nothing nearly as much as the non-African cichlid people were selling. And I was actually looking at some blue shrimp here because I wanted to maybe get some more for my bloodline, but ended up not getting that because I was going to spend my money on some other things that you'll get to see a little bit down the road. And the table directly behind them had a lot of different plants and hard goods, meaning woods and a couple of rocks. They had a lot of bacopa, a lot of different anubiases, some java ferns, and these guys are actually from my club, and they are down here, or up here rather, in Cincinnati, selling some of the plants that they had. So it's really cool to see some of the guys from our club out here selling stuff, and upon talking with them, they had a decent day, not a great day, not a terrible day, but it's cool to see a lot of plants here as well. And then the table after them was just sort of a hodgepodge of different things. They had plecos, they had some multis, they had some corridoras, they had plants, they had some endlers, some PVC parps for overflows, all of those types of things. And they actually had a sign directly above them where they were posting what all the prices were and whatnot, and they had already probably crossed out half of their things. Again, this was in the span of the first 25-30 minutes. They already sold half of the things that they had brought, and they didn't bring a small amount of some of the things. They brought 4 or 5 bags of some of them and had already sold out of them. And this next tank here, we have some of the African cichlids that I was talking about. Some really cool African cichlids, but just not for me because I just don't have tank space right now. I love them, but just can't put them anywhere right now, unfortunately. But again, if you wanted African cichlids, this is the place to be. And you can't forget about the pleco guys, and these guys here were selling a bunch of different types of caves. You saw the shark outline there, some half rounds, some fully rounded entrances, some squares, some smaller ones, just a good all-around selection of different pleco caves for people with plecos they wanted to try breeding. So with the last table in this room, we're going to head out and we're going to go to the next room, and you can just sort of see the line of people that is here. This is probably 15-20 minutes after we'd gone out, of people just waiting to get into the first room, and then you can go into the second room. And there's only one-way traffic, so once you left a room, you couldn't necessarily go back in there. So it was unfortunate that I couldn't go back into the other room and look around to see what things I may or may not have wanted after looking at the other things. But that's just a cost of this type of event during these times. So again, you have another Pleco Cave person here with a bunch of different cave styles for shrimp, for plecos, for pistos, all those different types of things. You can see those on the left-hand side there. And after that, there was a lot more of the angelfish here and African cichlids, and I really wasn't too interested in those, so I just sort of skipped over these tables because I didn't need to, get in people's ways that are actually interested in those fish. And again, here's Cunningham Cichlids. He's from the Michigan area. Had a lot of really good African cichlids, some different types of dry goods and flake foods. And yeah, it was just really cool to see somebody that I know from one of my old clubs down here selling some different African cichlids at the Cincinnati Swap meet. And the whole reason for coming up to Cincinnati was to see Jerry here, to pick up some ancestral species Azura Blue Flash. So we'll see those later on in the video, and you'll get to see what they look like, as well as how many I got and what my plans are with them. And the next table here again had some more shrimp, some blues, some reds, some yellows, some greens, and they also had some assortments of live bears, some sailfin mollies, some plecos, other things of that nature. And she had also done pretty well at this point. I wish I would have seen those undergravel filters actually earlier when I was at the swap meet, because I would have been interested in getting those, but alas, I missed those undergravel filter plates and cannot go back and get them. And then actually here I was looking at some different types of crypts. These people were selling a good amount of different plants, and they looked really healthy, but I had already spent all my money. So as nice as they are, I couldn't really get any of the plants there because I spent them all on my plecos that I had gotten. But I was still looking, because I could potentially, ask my friend for some money, but it's very helpful for me to have a set budget when going to these places, so I just don't overspend and buy things that impulsively I don't really need, but it would be really cool to have, like these crypts, for example. So after this planted table here, we're going to move on to the next table here, which had a bunch of different live bears, some plecos, some guppies, some African cichlids, and again, I just really wasn't super interested in any of those. You can see him there bagging some of them up for one of the customers that he was selling to. But they had some really cool fish. I just didn't have any space, or don't have any space for them. It was pretty clever to bring these guys in these Sterilite containers and then be able to pull them out and sell them to people individually. This next table here had a bunch of different angelfish, corridoras, catfish, things of that nature. I thought it was a really good use of otherwise recyclable or throwawayable bottles, whether they be orange juice, apple juice, grape juice, olive oil maybe comes in those, vegetable oil. Just be able to reuse those and have really solid containers that you can stack very efficiently in different bags and whatnot. I was looking at some of these rainbow fish here, but upon further inspection and the price, I just realized that I couldn't afford those. This is the worst part about going to these fish club swaps and only having so many dollars to spend and not being able to buy things that interest you. But in the long run, it's better that I don't end up buying a bunch of these different splurge items, things that I don't need or don't have space for, or just wouldn't be able to care for them properly. My friend here actually bought a cobalt egg tumbler, McDonald jar, that he's actually going to use for I don't know what, but he was really interested in that because we have those in our aquaculture facility that we use to grow out tilapia, like hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of tilapia eggs, catfish, largemouth bass, all different types of eggs. We have really large McDonald's jars that we mix all of the eggs into and incubate them in. At this point, we're getting to some of the final tables, and here we have a lot of different live bears, angelfish, guppies, some different types of plants, some driftwood, some filters, just a hodgepodge of different things, some really good prices on them. If I, again, had tank space, I would love to get them. And I think, as you'll see towards the end, a lot of these tables are more full at this point. And I think that is because a lot of people spent their money initially when they first walked in the door. And I think later on, these tables here will get a little more love from people that were coming in later. This next tank here, or rather not tank, table, had some good prices on some different Java ferns, Java moss, some different foods in the back, a lot of different South American and African American fishes that they were selling that they had bred. Again, beautiful specimens, but just don't have the tank space to appreciate them and to be able to take them in and actually care for them. Along this back wall here, we again had some more African cichlids that again I just couldn't keep, along with some different Synodontis species, some other I don't remember what I was looking at there, but a lot of different fish back here that again I just don't have the money nor the space for, which is a sad thing again, as I was saying earlier, but you know, it happens. And then these guys also were selling a lot of different accessories here, different foods, as well as different plastic bags for shipping fish, which I thought was an interesting thing because I hadn't really seen people selling those there. And then we cut over to the next table here, which is again more African cichlids and some more African cichlids. And my friend actually from the East Coast was surprised at the regionality of different fish clubs and what people kept and whatnot. And then I was telling him that the water here is basically just liquid rock, and keeping African cichlids is, you know, easy to do when you have already naturally high pHs with high calcium, as well as having houses that are larger than what you typically find along the East Coast and being able to house larger tanks and larger fish. The next table here had some different, again, grow outs of African cichlids, some other bristlenose plecos, some other plants, and there is actually a queue for the last line of people here, but I'm not really going to stick around and wait for that because, again, there wasn't anything that was interesting to me. There had been something very, very particular for a very good price in order for me to spend some more money that I had just in reserve in case I actually found something that was what I wanted and wasn't able to find. So this last table here, or last two tables here, again had some more African cichlids. They had also some gadiids as well as some additional plants like hornwort or other, you know, African cichlid safe plants that wouldn't get destroyed and demolished by them. They also had some different types of albino lucipinus, which were pretty cool. I hadn't seen those before, but that would be really cool to get a strain of those going and breeding. But again, just don't have breeding space right now. So the final table here is actually a local aquarium shop in Cincinnati that decided to set up a table and bring in some hard goods, some different types of pumps, rocks, all those types of things. And it was really cool to see, you know, just a fish store out there. I believe it was Finspiration that was out there selling at the swap meet. So I hope you guys enjoyed that tour and just showing you guys around the African aquarium show. Swap meet that was at the Greater Cincinnati Aquarium Society. It was great having them host it. It was really cool to get up there. But now I want to show you guys, the people that stuck around to the end to see the fish that I got, what I actually got. So I ended up paying $30 for 6 ancestor species Azura Blue Flash. And these, to the best of my knowledge, came from Eric Bodrock, who I think initially brought them into the country only in 2018 or 2019. And this gentleman that I bought them from, Jerry, had spawned a couple different clutches at this point and had 100 or so of them, and he was just trying to get rid of them. So he's getting rid of them for a decent price. But the reason why I was so drawn to these and the reason why I am looking forward to breeding these is because of their coloration and breeding. Before I show them in breeding dress, this is actually what they look like normally, and they in and of themselves are still pretty cool fish to look at. They have really cool specklings. They have some iridescent sheens to them when they aren't all the way colored up. The males still get the normally large bristles, and the females stay a little bit smaller and don't get those bristles necessarily. And now for the breeding dress of the male, and isn't he spectacular? I just love the jet black body, the iridescent blue in the finnage, the really big bristles up front. I think he just looks amazing, and just really looking forward to keeping this fish. I would eventually like to start line breeding these guys, specifically to try bringing out that coloration that is with them during breeding throughout the rest of their life stages. But that's going to be a very long process. That's going to be a very long journey in order to do that, to actually be able to breed those fish out and selectively breed them to have earlier and earlier coloration to the point that you start ending up with fish that are that color the entire time rather than just during breeding dress. And I would imagine it's very similar to how they bred in the super red bristlenose plecos, and that I could see these guys being that next thing. If you can get that colorization to stabilize throughout the entire life, that would be such a beautiful fish in a tank. there also has to be thought about whether or not the female is going to look that way. And actually, I don't really know what that female will look like. So if you guys have any experience with this or know anything about them, I'd love to hear whether or not the female keeps that breeding dress color throughout, her spawning period, or if it's just the male that goes into that spawning dress. So I'm hopeful that I have at least a couple males and a couple females out of the 6 that I purchased. And again, this will probably be a very long breeding project, and I look forward to seeing where this takes me and having something that I can actually work on. With that, I hope you guys have a blessed day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.